Hello and welcome to part 6 of the Rik Fox Story. This has been an ongoing story of Rik Fox, and today we're going to be talking to you today, Rik, about some of the people you've had the pleasure to jam with over the years. And so I was reading that real early on, one of the first people you ever jammed with was, I believe, the guitar player from Steppenwolf. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a brief jam. He had his own rehearsal studio in Hollywood, and a memory escapes me about how exactly when I wound up there.
Yeah.
But it was Michael Monarch. He was the original guitarist for Steppenwolf, and I really wish I could put my finger on how I wound up there. But he and I were just jamming back and forth and stuff. I think we jammed in some Steppenwolf songs and like that, and that was, of course, like you asked me all the questions, I was asking him all these questions about early Steppenwolf, so, fulfilling my curiosity about the band because I was a fan from age like 13. And
so when you got to jam with him, like, what's the time period we're talking? I imagine, early mid-70s?
Oh, no, I didn't get out to L.A. until 82.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if this was when you were playing the New York scene or what. Okay.
I don't remember what year it was either.
Oh.
Of all the things, I wish I could remember this.
Yeah.
I just have the memory of being in the studio room with him and just jamming stuff, but I don't remember what year it was. Had to be, of course, in the 80s.
Yeah.
The late 80s, early 90s, maybe.
Oh, amazing. And I've read up on you quite a bit, Rik, and so I understand that Michael Monarch and Stephen was quite a huge influence. So that had to have been quite quite a fun time to get to know the guy.
Yeah, I also met John Kay, the singer from Steppenwolf, at one of the NAMM shows.
Oh, wow.
And they shared the same production people with Three Dog Night, because they were both on the Dunhill ABC label. And Bill Podelor and I forget the other guy. They were their producers, and I had an occasion to meet. I think it was Chuck Negron's wife, or one of the three singers.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and they were all friends with each other, like in the family stuff. So she said to me, "If you meet John, mention my name," and because he doesn't really open up to a lot of people that quickly. Especially strangers. So
yeah.
If you mention my name, he'll open up right away, which I did. And he was, excuse me, he was sitting at the Rickenbacker booth because he was a Rickenbacker endorsee.
Yeah.
And he played Rickenbacker guitars, and so when I went up and mentioned her name, he just like she said, he opened up automatically and was very nice. And I told him, I was biggest fan in the world. As you probably hear that from a million people.
Yeah.
I said, but I was turned on to you guys at age 13 and 68. So, I just latched on to everything you guys have done from the first album on, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate what you've done for me and what you bring to the table in the world, and appreciate your writing and your vision and music like that. And so it was real nice, and he autographed a poster of himself to me, for a Rickenbacker poster and like that, and it was pretty cool. So I finally I would love to just sit down and like you are with me.
Yeah.
Fire all these questions at him because I'm such a Steppenwolf fanatic, like that. But I don't want to take up all his time. It was a NAMM show.
Of course.
Like that, so.
And Steppenwolf's one of those bands. Even they're quite a legendary band. Of course, been around for years. But they're one of those bands that unless you've heard of them, they're kind of under the radar as far as there hasn't been a lot of books and stuff written about them. So it's kind of cool that you could get that close and personal with somebody that was in the band.
Well, they have had a lot of things written about them. I mean, come on, the band who wrote Born to Be Wild.
Yeah.
They didn't write it. The drummer, Jerry Edmonton, his brother Dennis, also known as Mars Bonfire, he's the one that wrote Born to Be Wild, but Steppenwolf recorded it, and it's the first song that we know of where the term heavy metal was mentioned.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that to the casual observer, you hear Steppenwolf, and immediately you think of that's the song you think of Born to Be Wild. But if you dig a little deeper, you even like stuff like Magic Carpet Ride, and if you dig even deeper, you find out they're a little more to Steppenwolf than just Born to Be Wild.
Yeah. Well, their roots are country and blues together. And some types of how do I want to say this? There's a whole flux, a melting pot of Steppenwolf's music. It's the old black blues, it's the slide guitars, it's Chicago blues, it's some country.
A little bit of everything.
It's just the way that they melded it together, and they crank it up, and it's if you know what to listen for, you can hear those roots.
Oh yeah.
So it turned me on to a whole slew of different types of music, just getting to know what their roots were.
Yeah, and another guy I know is a huge influence on you, and that you've actually met. I've seen you've been posting pictures about is Punky Meadows and Angel over here. Now, have you ever gotten, besides meeting those guys, have you ever gotten an opportunity to jam with any of them?
Yeah, actually, that did present itself, and just at the juncture point when I was going to join Steeler.
Yeah.
I had walked into the Rainbow Bar one night, and Greg Giuffria was sitting there at one of the center tables. And he had a champagne bucket. He was having champagne or whatever. He was by himself.
Yeah.
And he called me over. He says, "Come over, sit down. I'm going to talk to you." And I said, "Well, so what's up?" And he says, I want to. He validated for me, in other words, that my name had come up several times in discussions when they were on the road and whatnot. My name was, I guess, well, I met them while Mickey was still in the band, Mickey Jones, the bass player.
Okay.
But after Mickey got fired, my name was mentioned to them about possibly replacing him, at least trying to get a shot to audition, because we had the kind of same hairstyle, so I looked a little bit like Mickey.
Yeah.
But Mickey was one of the founders of Angel, so that's some pretty hard shoes to step into.
Of course.
And I was friends with J.R. Smalling, who a lot of people will know was the tour manager for Kiss.
Yeah.
And that was J.R. on the beginning of the Kiss Live. You wanted the best, you got the best. That's J.R. introducing Kiss to the stage. So at that point, J.R. was working out of Lieber Krebs Management, which was Aerosmith's management in Manhattan. He had an office there, and he and I bumped into each other at one of the New York clubs, and the subject of Mickey came up. And I was wearing a white jacket, and then my hair looked like Mickey's. And he says, he goes, let me make some phone calls. And I said, well, what happened? He goes, well, nobody's really talking about it, but yes, Mickey did get fired. I said, I saw it in Circus Magazine.
Yeah, Circus, yeah.
Like that, and they made an announcement in Circus Magazine. So all of us Angel fans are in shock because nobody was talking about why and what had happened. It's just that he was fired. And so JR says, come to my office and I'll make some phone calls. So I was staying in Jersey at the time, and I had to keep taking transit back into Manhattan from Jersey. And I'd sit there, and he's a busy guy. He's got other things to do. But I sat there while he was on the phone talking to somebody in Los Angeles, trying to get me a slot, to see if I could audition for Angel.
Yeah.
And it was like a 2-day process for him to finally get an answer. And what he said was they have some guy named Felix, which eventually we came to know as Felix Robinson.
Yeah.
That they had already been working with Felix because Angel's tour manager, Bill Sherrick, who's now a friend of mine, was managing the band Felix Robinson was in.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, again, in the family, kind of a thing. And Felix had already known the guys in Angel and got together and did some writing and stuff with them. So the Angel didn't have the luxury and the time to have a cattle call or whatever of audition bass players. They had to do this transition fast, and they were on their way to doing the White Hot album. So Felix joined, and he got the gig, and I didn't. So that's kind of pretty much how it happened. But to go back to Greg Giuffria, he validated all of this.
Oh wow, that is totally cool.
And he said, "Yeah, your name has come up several times." He says, "At this point, we're trying to reform again." And Rudy Sarzo is just filling in with us right now. He's going to be moving on, so we need somebody to take the permanent slot. Or would you be interested? Because I know you wanted to play in the band.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now I'm at the fork in the road, the inevitable fork.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to join Steeler, which is like one of the hottest bands in LA.
This is an interesting.
Or should I jump into joining my dream band, which would have been Angel?
Yeah, this is an interesting footnote in your story, Rick, because while I know that you knew the Angel guys, I've never even heard this part of the story that you came that close to getting an audition for Angel. And again, like you said, that's before you were ever even a Steeler or Wasp or any of that. And so, the fact that you were considered for a band of that caliber at that point in time, that kind of, I think, to me, speaks volumes of your ability to play the bass like you do.
Well, I was already out of Wasp, but I was at the juncture of
Steeler.
Steeler.
Okay.
I was officially told I was in Steeler on December 28th, which is my birthday, 1982.
What a birthday present, huh? Wow.
So because we were at the Rainbow, I was with Ron Keel like that, and and he says, "Oh, by the way, happy birthday! You got the gig in Steeler. Welcome to the band." It was just like that, So so and then here's Greg Giuffria, on another night, telling me, giving me the keys to Angel, more or less. You want to join? We'll it's the opportunity's there for you. Now that was one. I think the first time. I obviously took the gig with Steeler and not with Angel. But I had heard that they dissolved not long after that. After Rudy left and things were not progressing, there was like a lack of direction, I think, or something. I didn't know exactly what caused them to evaporate at that moment. But in the '90s, I had gotten a call out of the blue from Barry Brandt, Angel's drummer. And he says, can me and Frank and Punky come over? And I said, yeah. What am I going to say? No.
Yeah.
And then and I gave him my address, and he calls me right back. Barry's like a big kid. He calls me right back. Goes, hey, can we bring some beers over?
Sure.
Like why would that be a question?
Yeah.
You're asking me if it's okay to bring beer to my apartment.
Sure.
And so I don't know. 20 minutes or so later, there's a knock at my door, and in walks fucking Bunky Meadows, Frank Domino, and Barry Brandt.
Wow.
Then I'm like, this is one of those pinch me moments. Fuck, there's just 3/5 of Angel walking into my apartment. How cool is that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we talked about me hooking up with them, and they brought me some music to listen to that they were working on. And I think it wound up being the stuff that was on that CD called In the Beginning.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Okay, so it wasn't like super classic Angel stuff like the first 2 or 3 albums. It didn't have that same energy and feel. It was Angel, but not the power Angel I remember.
Yeah. Now, Rick, a guy that's been around both, the Angel camp and the Kiss guys, both New York and the LA scene. Why do you think that like Angel, of course, now they're kind of considered a legendary band, although they never, let's say, made the same level of commercial success as like a Kiss, and they were managed by the same people on the same label. Because I used to hear stories about that Angel wanted to tour with Kiss, but like Kiss didn't dare take them on the road because they were afraid that Angel would kind of like blow them off the stage or something.
Well, there was some competition between the black and white themes.
Yeah,
I guess. But they had different managements, but the same record label.
Oh, maybe that's it. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know how to. I can't speak for them, so I don't know how to address that.
Yeah.
Suffice to say that our meeting dissolved and nothing really actually happened. But a curious question that people have asked me is, now that Angel has reformed again,
and
they're out like touring and whatnot, they go, how come you're not playing in the band? And I said, you have to ask them. I don't know. They got a good bass player, but I was never asked. I don't know why. And it's, people make the decisions, they make the decisions. I was friends with the guy who was the main catalyst.
Yeah.
In getting this all started Danny. He goes also by the name of Pharaoh. Danny is this guy that was doing sculptures of rock stars.
Okay.
And he did one of Gene. He did an excellent one of Punky. And I used to run an Angel Earth Force Yahoo fan page.
Mm.
Before we had Facebook. Yahoo had groups.
Yeah,
There's Yahoo Kids, Yahoo this, Yahoo that, and I was running an Angel Yahoo page, and Danny came on, and he was a big fan of Angel and whatnot, and so that's kind of how we first met.
Wow.
And Danny was the catalyst in finding Punky and getting him to be motivated to come back out and play, because Punky didn't really want to come out and play live that much anymore. Yeah. And he managed to get Punky convinced to record a solo album, and then played with him on that. And then from there, I guess just the constant convincing, coercing, Kamala, and eventually they got Angel reformed. It was Punky and Frank.
Yeah.
They were touring, Punky Meadows and Frank Tomito of Angel, and then he just wound up getting a whole band together, and Danny plays second guitar under Punky, and that's it. But I'm just curious, since we were friends from going back before he was even in the band. If I was curious if my name ever came up into consideration as a bassist or not. But be that as it may, they've got the guy they've got, and he's really good. And like that, and they're touring, and and I have a mustache, and nobody. Well, the keyboard player's got a goatee, but
I mean, it's interesting, a real interesting little footnote in your career, and I don't know how many people are aware about it, but I've never heard about all this, so that's pretty cool that kind of come out in today's episode. So let me ask you, Rik. So eventually, you Steeler, that falls apart, and then we've talked in some of the past episodes about the band Sin. So once Sin and Surgical Steel and all that kind of dissolves, what's the point when you start getting all these offers to kind of jam with these other people?
Well, when I had Thunderball after Surgical Steel. Okay. My manager Ken Rubin was also managing Randy Hansen, who's been doing a Hendrix tribute for years. Now, Randy Hansen was also the key guitar player in Sam Kennison's band.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's how that...
One Sunday afternoon, Ken calls me up. He says, "You want to go jam with Sam?" I said, "Sure. Who wouldn't?" He goes, "Well, they're playing at the China Club tonight." He goes, "Get over there right now. If you want to get your dibs in, get over there right now." So I got to ride over to the China Club in Hollywood, and I met Sam. And, we had passed each other in clubs, but without really knowing who. I knew who he was. He didn't know who I was. Yeah. But he recognized my face. And so he said, "You want to play the early show or the late show?" And I said, "The late show." And he said, "Okay, fine." So we were hanging out. They did the first show early, and then everybody was hanging out the green room downstairs. There's a bar in the China Club, and we were hanging out there. And little by little, I guess people started disappearing, and I guess I was talking to somebody. I got engaged in a conversation, and I start hearing music going on upstairs. and I go upstairs with my bass. I said, "I'm supposed to be playing right now," And fortunately, the bass tech on stage left was a friend of mine. He knew me. He knew I was supposed to be playing that night. It was already planned. So I'm standing. I go up to stand at the side of the stage, and he looks down, sees me there, and he looks up, and who's playing in my spot but Jimmy Bain?
Oh wow, legendary Jimmy Bain, yeah.
And so I don't know how that happened. Yeah. I don't know if Jimmy talked himself into this or what. I don't know. So he says the roadie says to me, "You're supposed to be on here right now." I said, "Yeah, I know." So he motions to me, just wait a minute. And when that song ended, he pulls Jimmy over to the side of the stage, pulls the plug out. Mm-hmm. He didn't push Jimmy down the stairs, but he guided him down the steps on the stage. He plugs me in, he gets me up on the stage, and he pushes me. He goes, "Go!"
Wow.
Well, this is while Sam is talking to the audience.
Yeah.
In that space of a few moments, and here's Jimmy down there on the floor going 3 seats to the wind. He was absolutely bloated.
Wow.
And he's going, "What the hell's going on, man? What's going on? What just happened?" Like that. This he didn't know what was going to come. And Sam turns around, looks at me, and he goes, "You all right? You ready?" I said, "Yeah." And he gives me the thumbs up, and we launched into Wild Thing.
Wow. Wow.
And again, it was one of those pinch me moments because it was Randy Hansen on guitar, Sam on guitar. Now there's a whole stage full of like superstars.
Yeah.
There was little Steven Van Zandt from Springsteen on guitar.
Okay.
The Plasmatics producer, Jean Beauvoir.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. And he produced he was in the Plasmatic. He played produced the Ramones and whatnot. He's the guy with the big white mohawk.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of stuff with Gene, you know, for some 80s.
Yeah. He's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
He's on guitar. On drums was Randy Castillo from Ozzy.
Wow.
And it was a keyboard player, first name of Robin, the last name I can't remember.
Yeah.
And running around on stage on the other side of Sam was a super inebriated John Goodman from the TV show Roseanne.
Oh, wow.
playing blues harp.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So this was like a really extended version of Wild Thing.
Wow.
Like that. And it was a million cameras going off, and it was like diamonds everywhere. I don't even have one picture of us on stage.
Oh, what a shame. And about how crowded would you say the club was, or how many people were in the audience?
Shoulder to shoulder.
Wow.
It was packed. And I've talked to Jean several times. He said, I don't have any pictures either of that night. That's
amazing. I mean, and that just goes to show you kind of when that was, because, you know, of course, you know, that all predates the internet and all this, and even back in the 80s, not everybody took their camera everywhere they went. It's not like it is today, so that even kind of just speaks some volumes about when it's...
I'm telling you, Jason, the room was full.
Yeah.
That's all I saw was camera flashes.
Wow.
It was like stars in the sky. It was diamonds going, it was camera flashes going off everywhere.
Yeah, and you know, of course, when you do these all-star jams and stuff, Rick, it's a little different than, you know, when you're in a band like Sin and, you know, you got a whole set to do, and the band has to get together and rehearse and everything. So as far as, you know, doing a jam like that, was there much rehearsal, or do you guys kind of just hit the stage, as you said, and kind of just let it rip?
Normally the rehearsals are prearranged.
Yeah.
But sometimes this stuff happens, comes up on the fly.
Yeah.
Like with Sam, and it's like, you do or die. You ready? Jump in and know what you're doing or what. I mean, I played Wild Thing in Jersey with the cover band, so I already knew the song.
Yeah. And of course, you don't know this at the time, but like years later, you know, Randy Castillo, you think, oh man, you know, that cat, he's no longer here, but I got a chance, you know, that one day to kind of jam with him.
Yeah, I mean, I turned around on stage, bass and drums. I was connected with them, while we were playing.
Yeah.
There was just so many stars on the stage. It's like it's hard to debrief yourself after that when something like this of this magnitude happens, and it doesn't happen every day.
Yeah.
It's like when I was in Surgical Steel. Before that, and we were down at Irvine Meadows watching Dio. It was a Sacred Heart tour concert.
Yeah.
And I was standing backstage, and I forget who I was talking to, and Wendy Dio comes out and grabs me by the left elbow and starts dragging me. She goes, "Come on!" And she's dragging whoever else, other musicians we can get, and whoever else was like on the side of the stage or by the audience there, he grabbed a whole bunch of us and brought us on stage. So we walked through the structure that holds up the castle.
Wow.
That they had, and we came around out under the turret on stage left, under Claude Schnell's keyboards.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And that was Jimmy Bain's mic, and we all got me, the guys from Poison, Nader from London. It was like anybody from any of the Hollywood bands that was present were all brought on stage, and we did the first live version of We're Stars.
Wow. Yeah, and you talked a lot about that over the years, and I'd imagine that's got to be one of the greatest jams you ever got to take part in all time.
Yeah, I mean, we're on stage. There's like a gazillion people out in the audience. Irvine Meadows was an outdoor venue. So
I remember. Yeah,
it was packed. And then the weekend after that, Rough Cut was playing at the country club in
Reseda.
In Reseda.
Yeah.
And of course, that's Wendy Dio was managing Rough Cut. So guess who's there? There's Ronnie.
Yeah.
And all of us who were up in the VIP balcony, again, we repeated it. We all dragged down. We got up on stage, and you got Vince Neil, Paul Shortino. Well, Paul Shortino's a Rough Cut, but
yeah.
Vince Neil, Jeff LaBar from Cinderella. I think Tom Hardy was there from Stormer. It was just, again, it was a literal who's who of rock stars.
Yeah.
And we all got brought on stage, and we did the second weekend in a row. We did the second live version of Stars.
Oh, how cool is that? And when you're doing...
And I was kind of, it was really cramped up there. I was like right next to Ronnie.
Yeah.
And when he came to the chorus, he looks up at me. I'm on his left side. He shoves his mic in my face and he goes, "Sing!"
Yeah.
And that was great. It was a blast. So that was, getting to share the stage with legends and mentors like Ronnie and Sam Kinison. Those things are what's dream come true.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd imagine so, and I'd imagine too as a musician, like when you have your own band, Sin, and that, and you're up there in a club and you're doing a show. It's one thing, because you got to have a certain level of professional. You want the show to go great. You want people to love the band and stuff. But I'd imagine that's also a little different doing these jams where maybe there's not as much pressure. It's more of a fun thing. You have to jump up on stage with these other musicians. It's not necessarily your band. You can kind of get up there and just kind of have fun. Is that kind of type of vibe you describe it?
Yeah, I didn't have to play anything. We just sing.
Yeah.
We all knew the chorus. This is, we're stars.
Yeah.
Like that. And this time I got a whole bunch of pictures. I have some really outrageous, classic shots with Ronnie and I together.
Wow.
And I'm wearing my Stars T-shirt, SDARZ from the band.
Yeah.
Stars. Like that. Dave Plastic took a whole bunch of pictures. Like he was a famous, photographer, and he got a lot of shots of us on stage like that. So, I finally have something to show for that.
Oh, how cool! Yeah, and especially Ronnie's past and everything, to be able to look back on those experiences you had with legendary Ronnie James Dio. I can just imagine. What a cool thing to have for life. Those photos.
Dio was a band I wish I could have been in, because Ronnie and I are both kindred spirits in that, he's into all things medieval, and, he has that kind of imagery around in his songs and things like that. And I've done the Renaissance fairs. I've got suits of armor and swords and whatnot, medieval weapons and whatnot. So, I'm sure that would have been something Ronnie felt was, a cool bonding thing.
Yeah, I seen his house where he used to have in LA. It was like this huge kind of castle, and he had all this medieval these knights and stuff. It looked really, really cool.
Well, it was like a Tudor style home. It was like a Renaissance era home. But yeah, he had an occasional this and an occasional that. Whereas my house is full of this stuff.
Wow.
So that would have been just kind of cool if both of us were playing together in the same band.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this over the course of the time we've done these interviews, Rick. But very early on in your career, you look like a cross between kind of Rudy Sarzo and Punky Meadows. I was curious if we back in the in your club days and that, when you were really in a lot of the clubs, were you ever mistaken for those guys? People would see
absolutely.
You.
Yeah, more punky than Rudy. But
yeah.
But after Angel played, I don't remember if it was the Palladium or it was Madison Square Garden. It was one of the huge shows they did, and they went out to dinner afterwards. And we found out the restaurant they were at, me and some friends, and we kind of went over to introduce her. This is when I first introduced myself to Punky. And I used to have a scrapbook with pictures of the bands I played in. And whatnot. And I was showing Punky these pictures of me playing, as showing him for the first time I'm a bass player, and I'm showing him these pictures. And his first wife, Fran, was with him.
Wow.
So Fran comes over and she's looking over our shoulders at the pictures, and she says, "Punky, I never saw these pictures. You wear these."
Wow.
He goes, "It's not me. It's him. It's Rick." She goes, "No. This is you." His own wife thought the pictures of me was him. That's how much we looked alike.
That is super funny. And now another guy I wanted to kind of chat with you about today, that that you posted a few weeks back that you had a opportunity to jam with, was the late Mark St. John, briefly the guitar player from Kiss that played on the album Animalize. Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, there was a a band that I was friends with called Sweet Savage from Dallas, Texas, from the Midwest, and they were like, you know, the big guys in the Hollywood scene. You know, they came in like Steeler originally did, with their own truck, their own lights, their own PA. They were a self-contained, you know, touring band.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And they were also produced and recorded by Dana Strum. So there was all of these dots connected to why we were all friends with each other.
Okay.
And they played at a club in Orange County. I think it was called Joshua's Parlor.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Which was just not Jezebel's. Jezebel's was the other one, but Joshua's they played at. And Mark St. John just happened to be there in the audience.
Wow. Wow.
Because, you know, he was an Orange County guy, and he'd occasionally go out to the clubs like that. And I was in the audience, and Joey C. Jones, the singer from Sweet Savage, said, you know, hey guys, let's do a jam, you know, like that. And I looked at Mark, he looked at me, and sure, let's do this. And so I borrowed their bass, Lane's bass, and Mark borrowed Chris Sheridan's guitar, and we got up and we did Zeppelin by Rock and Roll by Zeppelin.
Wow, wow.
Backwards there, and that's where that picture came from of Mark and I on stage together. So
now, did you just meet him the one time, or did you ever get to know him at all?
Yeah, I mean, we hung out at the country club one night.
Oh, okay.
I forget who was playing.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who was a photographer that hung around with me a lot, who passed away, Mike Ozzie Gibbons, took a lot of shots. He worked for my band Sandy, took a lot of pictures of us and bands that I'd played in.
Yeah.
So he was there at the club, and we were kind of goofing around, and the subject, of course, of Vinnie Vincent came up, and we were joking about Vinnie Vincent, and I said, you know, if you could caricature a person as an animal, I said, Vinny's got these huge lips. It's kind of like a donkey. You know, and Mark reaches over and he peels my bottom lip down like I'm making a big pout.
Wow.
You know, and so we were kind of joking about how Vinnie Vincent looks like a donkey. You know, and Mark was bending my bottom lip down, and Mike took a picture of that, and so that picture has gone all over the internet. People were saying it was Mark and Vinnie Vincent, and it was Mark and myself.
That's funny because, you know, again, Mark St. John wasn't in Kiss for just a brief second, did the one album, didn't even, I think, ever really get to do a live show with them, and he briefly had his own band, White Tiger, but that didn't last long, and I know in the 90s he was trying to do something with Peter Criss, but that fell apart, and, you know, sadly, like when you knew him, was he suffering with that? You know, when you were hanging out with him at all, was he suffering from that hand condition?
Not that particular night, no.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we obviously played guitar, and there was no affliction. It was hurting his hand. He wasn't suffering that night. I just remember him as being a really kind, cool guy to hang out with. It was really nice. No pretense, no rock star attitude. He was just like a regular guy, like anybody else, you know.
It's kind of sad the way things ended up going for him, you know, because, I mean, he never really, after Kiss, got a real huge chance to kind of break out at all. And from what I understand, he got really horribly hooked on drugs. And, you know, he did a brief time, from what I understand, in prison. And you know, he ended up dying of brain hemorrhage. And I was reading up on him, and apparently he got really severely beaten by one of the other prisoners. And they think that's what caused his brain hemorrhage.
Yeah, that's really sad. That's a super sad way to go.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I mean, we try to concentrate on the good memories.
Of course.
One of the good ones that I have is being able to play with one of the guitar players from Kiss on stage.
And I think that's cool too. But like you were talking about the photo going around the internet like that for the last several years, because I mean, you know, Mark St. John, like even if you try to look up photos on him, you know, when he was in Kiss, there's just a few shots of him, you know, so it's cool to have kind of that extra photo out there.
Yeah, he did. I think he did some live stuff with them, but not that much.
Yeah. So it is kind of cool to have like almost an exclusive photo that's out there of just you and him, you know. And then
it's another one of my Forrest Gump scrapbook shots.
Yeah. And then you know, a few years back, you were showing me, Rick. You know, when you first started getting back into, you know, the music scene down here in LA, after several years of not doing too much, one of the first things you did, I know, was you got invited down to one of those ultimate jam nights, and it didn't go too well. You mind talking a little bit about that?
I don't know which episode, which one that was. I was involved for about a decade or so. I took a hiatus from music, and I was doing my ancestral, Polish wing hussars thing. So that's why I was out of the music scene. I got it. It got to a point where Seattle came in, and it was all about Pearl Jam and that kind of stuff, and I didn't want to do that, so I pulled out, and I worked in the film industry. And while I was in the film industry, I was also doing the Renaissance fairs. So the average person in music, what they say is, well, he disappeared and hasn't done anything, and
Oh, no.
That's not true. I was doing a lot. I just wasn't doing it in front of these people.
No. What I'm talking about is maybe this event was about 4 or 5 years ago. It's this event called Ultimate Jam Night, and it's something that Chuck Wright.
Oh, that. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just before that, I started getting back into the music industry around 2012, 2013.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that period.
I felt like I was running into some difficulty. There was some opposition, and I can't explain it, and I don't know why. It's hard to put
into words
fingers on who this, that, and the other. But I have a friend, Fifi LaRue, who's been around the Hollywood scene for a long time.
Yeah.
He's got like this band. They look like Kiss. They wear white face and black. Silver and platforms. So he had me come down to their club in Orange County, and they were playing at. And that's kind of where I first started. He invited me to come up, and we did some AC/DC songs and like that. And then I eventually met the guitarist from White Lie, Kevin Ray.
Okay.
And then he was putting on these jams down in Orange County at what used to be Malone's.
Okay.
So I would start doing jams with the various other players on the scene, on the circuit like that. And then, let's see, that Ultimate Jam Night thing, before the Ultimate Jam, I think it started in Toluca Lake at a little club called Lucy's 51.
Okay, that's probably it, yeah.
And a Quiet Riot bassist,
Chuck Wright,
was putting on these all-star jams, kind of like bands who were not touring or were off the road and still wanted to kind of get together and play.
Yeah, I think one you got invited down to was they were doing like Ultimate Jam Night of Iron Maiden stuff.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is what led to that was I went into Lucy's. Chuck said come down and you can jam, and I got up with August Zadra, who's played with Styx.
Yeah.
And Brian Tichy, who played guitar on this particular night. Yeah. And we did Iron Maiden's The Trooper, which is on YouTube, like that. And the singer Paulie Z wound up. He's a mainstay with this
thing,
Ultimate Jam thing. And what happened was it went out of Lucy's and wound up at Hollywood Bowl.
Okay.
So they were doing it, they just morphed it over to the Hollywood Bowl, and I could just never get down there at the right place at the right time and get in on the jams there. So what I think was Chuck had a difference of opinion about something business with his partner at the Hollywood Bowl jam.
Oh, okay.
And he went over to the whiskey.
Yeah.
And that's where the Ultimate Jam Night started.
In fact, and then they hadn't done it in a number of years since all this COVID stuff, and I think literally just right before Christmas they relaunched it again.
Yeah. So I was curious to see what it was about.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing reports from various people that it's extremely structured.
Yeah.
Like right down to the letter, to the number. There's like no room for error.
Wow.
The way it's run. Wow. I can understand that. Because it's like herding cats.
I guess it's a weekly gig, so it's a weekly.
So it takes a very, very long time to be invited unless you're in on the inner circle as one of their media darlings, or
okay.
You're one of these people that they super look up to.
Yeah, and then I know another after that a real happy event that talking about Steeler, and Ron Keel. Take me back. I'm not sure exactly when it was. A couple years ago, though, you got to take part in that Keel Fest event.
Right. But you asked me about the Iron Maiden thing.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I eventually got invited to participate, and Paulie contacts me, and Paulie Z, and he goes, here's a list of songs. Pick as many as you can. The more songs, the better. And I wanted to do the Trooper, but it wasn't on the list.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
I picked Wrathchild from the first Iron Maiden album.
Wow.
Like that, and I picked a bunch of other songs, and then when I showed up at the club, they only gave me the one song, which was Wrathchild.
Okay, maybe each guy gets a song.
Yeah, so picking as many songs didn't really matter because they only gave me Wrathchild. And I played with Chris Hager from Rough Cut and a bunch of other guys, cool guys. I wish I could remember their names.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, a lot of these guys who play these all-star jams, from my observation, in my opinion, I don't know what level of all-stars that they are because I don't know half the people that are playing there.
Well,
a lot of these guys are hired guns in a bigger name band.
Yeah, like for example, like you're saying, I mean, Ultimate Jam Night specifically is like it got to a point where it became like a weekly gig. So they want to guarantee they're going to have people down there every week. And the other thing, like you said, is some of these people, when I see the Ultimate Jam Night ads, I mean, they have a Facebook page, you can go check it out, but it'll tell you who's going to be playing, the next week. And some of these people, like you're saying, I've never even heard of. I have to kind of look up. Oh, okay, I'll go over to their Facebook. Oh, okay, he's in this band and this band. Or you mentioned Chris Hager. Okay, people may know. Okay, that's guitar player. He plays with Rik Fox. He plays with Stephen Pearcy. He's not necessarily a name guy, but you've heard of who he plays with.
Well, they also do ads. They do like a photo ad with the person and some information of the band he's from or who he is and who he's. They didn't do anything for me.
Wow, yeah. Well,
I had a friend of mine, as a graphic artist, took it upon himself to make up one for me.
Yeah.
And I submitted to them, and I don't think they even used it. So that right there is sending me a negative message.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's just like, so I got up and I did the one song, and I was off, and it was like, okay, no big deal.
Yeah.
Like that, and so like I said, a lot of these guys, these people, they played with other big name bands, so that somehow qualifies them as being an all-star.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like you said, it's more to do with the advertisement of getting people down there to check the gig out. Oh, that's the guitar player from Stephen Pearcy's solo band. Oh, okay, that's cool. We can go.
Because they have to do that because nobody knows who these players are. They're like, who is this guy? So he played with this big name band. I never heard of him. Yeah,
you're so right about that because even me, I'm guilty of that myself when I see these ads on Facebook. I'm like, some people like Chris Hager I have heard of, but some of the other people in the ad, who the hell is this? And like you said, it'll tell you, they play with this band and this band. Okay, then I might go check out who are those bands, but they're nobody that I immediately know. Okay, so that explains about the Ultimate Jam Night. Now, why don't we talk a little bit, which I know is a real happy event for you, getting to reunite with Ron Keel after all those years ago in Steeler and doing the Keel Fest.
Yeah, so Ron contacted me, and we had discussed off and on over the years about if anything should develop, would I be interested? I said, of course, like that. And a Steeler reunion was at one point kind of like a pipe dream.
Yeah.
We don't know if it'll ever happen. And it's the event that various critics said would never happen.
Yeah,
give it up, forget about Steeler, move on, and just move on. Period. It was all negative naysayers, you know. And so finally, I guess it was late 2018 or something. Ron contacted me, and he says, "Well, I'm putting on something called a Keel Fest, and we're going to have my Ron Keel band and Keel, the band, and then Steeler." And he says, "So are you in?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'll be up. Yeah, man." So he goes, "Well, this is not like a big money-making gig, but it's an important." I said, "Ron, just tell me where I got to be."
Yeah.
So he's the busiest, hardest working guy in show business. He set it up and flew me and Mitch Perry and we had a rehearsal. Like you asked about, do you guys rehearse and stuff ahead of time? We had a rehearsal out in North Hollywood or Sherman Oaks, or Van Nuys rather, like that. And Mitch hadn't played these songs in decades. I played him occasionally at home.
Yeah.
But we all walked in the room. Dwight Miller was on drums. Played with Ron for years.
Yeah, and Keo, yeah.
And we just launched into the Steelers, the songs.
And,
and after that first song, Ron just stopped and he looked around the room, and he was just, heebie-jeebies up in his arms. He's like, wow, because I didn't expect it to be like this.
And here's the funny thing about you saying all these years of speculation about a Steeler reunion and stuff, it's going to happen or not happen, but it didn't even matter that the great legendary Yngwie was missing. Like you said, Ron's up there, you're up there, Mitch Perry's, and obviously Mitch Perry, he more than filled the huge shoes of Yngwie Malmsteen.
Yeah, it was great playing with Mitch. He's a different kind of guitar player, and he probably should have been the guitar player for Steeler, but the history and fate went the other way.
Yeah,
like that. And and Mitch in his own right has played with everybody. Cher, Edgar Winter, Michael Schenker Group, Tallis. Mitch has played with everybody.
Yeah.
And like that. So it was great. I flew out with Mitch, to Columbus, Ohio. We played at El Rosa Villa, which is sad to say that's the club where Dimebag got shot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But, so we did the show, and it was great, and there was plans to do more Keelfest shows. But that's when COVID came in and just, threw everything out the window.
Yeah, now to wrap this part of the story up, Rick, before we get ready to move on, I want you to update the fans on this, that, after the Keelfest, and in fact, it was just about a couple of months back, I was reading, Ron made a post about that he's currently working on this album called Keel World something, where he's having a lot of these different friends of his record stuff with him, and you're going to be part of that, right?
Yeah, that's what he told me. I was fortunate to be one of the featured guests and invited to the podcast convention, which is in Nashville.
Wow.
Last August.
Yeah.
And Ron had a table, for his merchandise and booth and like that, and he arranged it for me to be at the table next to him, like that, and so we were talking. And he said, he goes, new Steeler material. And I said, what? He goes, I'm working on some stuff. There's going to be another album. I thought he meant we're going to do a whole Steeler album.
Yeah.
But what he was inferring was that he was talking about Keel World.
Wow, some kind of compilation.
He and I have talked since then.
Yeah.
I think he has, I don't know exactly where he wants us to record. It might be in Vegas. I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
But he says this is going to be in the studio, plug in with people, not like you record it at home over a file and send it.
Yeah, and how cool is that? It seems like even over the years, you and Ron have kind of not only stayed in touch, but had kind of a cool relationship. Whereas the fact that he would even not just do the Keelfest, but pick up the phone and call and, hey Rick, you want to take part in? How cool is that? And then once you do the event. And everything goes off as great as it did. I mean, that's got to be the ultimate feeling. Kind of like, we got up on stage again together. We did it. It had to just, what a way to kind of wrap it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then to be at this Rockin' Pod event and you kind of find out he's doing this album. Oh, by the way, Rick, you're going to get to be part of this album. I mean, again, how cool is that?
Well, it's wonderful and it's awesome and it's great to be doing Steeler material again.
Yeah, and I guess where we're going to wrap up tonight's episode. Another thing you do a lot of, Rick, is you get invited to appear on some of your musical friends, projects and albums. And one of thing you got invited to take part on. I forget the year. You can fill us in on that. Was Jim Crean's London Fog album. Talk a little bit about that. You appeared on a track on that album, right?
Actually, 2 tracks.
2 tracks, okay. So tell us about that.
It was almost 3. Let's see. I didn't know who Jim Crean was. He reached out and contacted me and asked me if I wanted to be on his album.
Okay.
And as I said, I didn't know anything about him, or I didn't know about his Hair Nation band or anything like that. But he's like this fantastic singer out of Buffalo, New York.
Yeah.
And I'd asked around a lot of people, and they said, no, I don't know who he is. So I got on the phone, and I was just talking to Jim and like that. And he says, you know what, I'm sick and tired, because I watch your activity in Facebook because I'm sick and tired of watching you get beat up and people, giving you a hard time and busting your balls all the time. So how about he goes, you do like some. I'm invite you to do some songs on my album. And I said that'd be great. Send me something on a. If you have like a CD of the rough mix, something I can learn to work with.
Okay.
Rough tracks like that. And which he did. He sent me what was eventually the single on the album was a song called "Broken."
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's the track, "Broken."
Like that. And so he sent me the rough mixes, and I worked with it for several months, and we have been talking back and forth over the phone. And I was put in touch with a guitar player named Steph Hahn. He's in France. He played with Paul Diano, I think it was Battlezone and like that. So, Steph is a known player over there in Europe.
Yeah.
And Steph and I were talking, and he says, "Are you playing on the song with Chris Holmes?" I said, "Chris Holmes is on this?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, I said, "I didn't know about that." He says, "Well, maybe you should ask Jim."
Wow.
So I asked Jim, I said, how about if I play on a song with Chris, so then you have two guys from Watch playing together on a song.
Yeah.
He goes, "That's a great idea." So he sent me another song, and then he wound up sending me a third song because Jim was asking me if you know rock stars, friends of yours, call them up and ask them, pitch them on it and see if they want to play on this as a guest. So, I opened up my phone book and I called, all these rock star guys. I knew Richie Grano, J.J. Crash. I asked them if they wanted to play on this thing, and they're like, I said, "With Jim Crean," and they went, "Who?"
Okay, yeah.
Nobody knew who Jim Crean was. But I said, "Well, he's the singer for Carmine and Vinny Appice's drum projects when they go out and play live." And they're like, "Okay," but they still didn't know who he was like that. And Jim wound up telling me that he's got Frank Domino going to be on the album.
Okay, yeah.
And he's trying to get Punky Meadows on, but we didn't get Punky, but we got Frank on. So I learned the three songs. It was "Broken," there was another song, and then we did an Angel cover of "Don't Take Your Love" from the Simple album.
Okay, wow.
So I went to record all three songs. And the drummer that was going to play on the Chris Holmes song with me was just having problems. He just could not
do it.
Follow the tracks.
Wow.
And so he wound up getting canned and like that. And so Jim says, well, never mind that song right now. Let's just concentrate on the one with Frank Domino and the single "Broken." So I learned all of Felix's bass lines, Felix Robinson's bass lines for "Don't Take Your Love." And then when I got the file from Jim to record the song, it was altered a little bit different than what I had. I had to adapt on the fly, and there was some arrangements that were a little bit different.
Okay.
So I did a couple of passes on it. I got it down, and we recorded that. We nailed that one down. We nailed down "Broken," and "Broken" kind of is almost like it reminds me of an Ozzy Osbourne type song.
Yes.
Like the intro is almost like a Crazy Train, or it's like that kind of an early Ozzy type song.
Oh, okay.
So the thing that came to me was the bass lines for this song, "The Broken," are going to require something like Bob Daisley would play.
Oh, okay.
And Bob Daisley is like one of my all-time favorite bass players.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I think I was channeling subconsciously
Bob Daisley,
or unconsciously. I was playing what I think was a Bob Daisley style bass line.
Wow. How cool is that? Yeah.
So we recorded those, and I sent them back to Jim, and they're on the album, so there was and Jim's got like all these other A-list stars.
Yeah.
He's got Carmine Appice. The songs I played on have Vinny Appice's on drums.
Oh, cool. Wow.
So, I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
And so about one song I'm on with Vinny Appice and Frank Domino, and the other song I'm on with Vinny Appice and Steph Hahn, like that, and Rudy Sarzo's on his albums, and Tony Franklin, and
Robbie Lochner,
all these A-list guys, Carmine Appice. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's a nice feather to have in my cap and my resume.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
But once it came out, again, no, a lot of people didn't know who Jim Crean was. So for me to walk around and say, look what I did. I look at these stars I played with.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, everybody's like, yeah, and so what?
Yeah, well, what's funny about it is Jim Crean at that time, I was kind of aware who he was, as far as, like you say, that he was a singer for Carmine. It would start out as Carmine and Vinny's Drum Wars project, and then they changed it to A Piece. And there's actually an album they did, and it's got Paul Sortino and Jim on there. And so that's what kind of launched Jim Crean. And then I think the London Fog album, as far as him having like a solo career and more people kind of being aware of who he was, that kind of what launched him like solo wise, because for many years he was doing the Hair Nation thing, which is a kind of national cover band where they do covers and play all over the United States. So that's kind of how he got his start,
Well, Jim Crean's album before that, Insatiable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fantastic album. I mean, he's got Phil Narrow from Talus.
Phil Lewis.
He's got Mike Tramp, from White Lion.
Yeah.
He's got Phil Lewis on there. Tony Franklin and Frank Tabino. So he's got a lot of the same, Robbie Lochner. He's got a lot of these same guys on it. And Robbie Lochner played the lead guitar on the song Broken. Was on.
He's one of my, I think
Jack Russell's Great White.
Yeah, I love Robbie Lochner, what he does, with Jack Russell. I tell you, it's almost a shame, like if he was in Great White or any of those other 80s band back in the day, I mean, he would have had a huge career, been a huge guitar hero, but I just love what that guy does. He's one of my favorite guitar players.
Well, Robbie also played, I think, with Rob Halford.
Oh, yeah. And then I know you can check out, he's got like a YouTube channel, and he puts out like a lot of cool little solo tracks that he does, where he does some of his stuff vocally even. So he's a guy that's super talented.
Yeah, I was originally supposed to record at Robbie's studio in Anaheim.
Oh, wow.
And I called him up, and I told him, I said, Jim asked me if I could record at your studio. And at that particular time, it was between gigs with Jack Russell's Great White, and he says, my studio's a mess. Everything's apart, because I couldn't even plug you in to record right now.
Yeah, and I got to ask, I know you're good friends with Jack Russell over years. How well did you know the other Great White guys? I'm talking about, like, Mark Kendall and the other original Great White guys.
Well, I knew the Mark and Jack from when I first was new in L.A.
Okay.
Right after I got out of WASP, I was living in Hollywood. I don't know if you know how well you know the Hollywood area, but I was living right around the corner from Cantor's Deli.
Okay, yeah. I've been by there. Yeah.
The Jewish Russian area.
Yeah.
Like that, and I somehow I think they answered an ad, or I answered it. They were looking for a bass player.
Oh, wow.
So Jack and Mark came over the apartment I was staying at.
Yeah.
And we talked about, possibly coming in and playing with them, like that. I had no reputation because I was only with WASP for 4 months, and I was out of New York. So
yeah.
We didn't have an internet, so they couldn't see, what I did in New York.
Wow.
You know. And I told Jack this, and he doesn't remember it. I said, you and Mark got into some argument, and you guys started wrestling on my living room floor.
Yeah.
Like that, rolling back around, like, getting into a fight.
Yeah.
I had a huge Spanish medieval sword on the fireplace, and I took the sword off the fireplace while they were on the floor rolling around, and I held the sword down to them. I said, I think it's time for you guys to go. And they thought I was out of my mind, because there's this guy with the sword to their throat, and they got up and left.
Yeah, because I can just tell you from my own experience, I mean, I happen to think Jack Russell is the voice of Great White. I mean, I think he's the most down-to-earth of those guys. I mean, just to kind of give you an example of what I'm talking, I've had the pleasure to interview him like 2 or 3 times, and every time I talk to him on the phone, he's super nice, kind of like you, Rick. And in fact, he told me last time I talked, hey man, you got my number. Anytime you want to talk to me, you feel free to give me a call. And when the band's Jack was first kicked out of the band and they split and everything, I tried to contact the other band and about doing an interview, just kind of get their story, and it was totally different. Like they just have a publicist. The publicist says, "Oh, we don't do interviews with little sites. We just, we just the big sites." And just that attitude alone, the difference in, Jack's demeanor, the fact that he's so down to earth and friendly. I'm like, I don't even care about interviewing those cats. This guy is more down to earth. He's more friendly. I'd rather talk to him anyways.
Yeah, in the mid to late '80s, I was working for a clothing company in their warehouse.
Yeah.
And we would get to see top fashion brands that were discounted, and we'd sell them out through our store, our company. It was called Saks SFO.
Wow.
And I had what was then a Mark Buchanan original. It was a leather trench coat. I mean, it was like butter soft leather. It was an awesome leather trench coat.
Wow.
And I'm standing outside the Roxy one night. Jack Russell was going into the Roxy. He turned around. He looks up and down at my trench coat, and he says, "You want to sell that?" He goes, "I'll buy it off you right now. I'll give you $600."
Oh, what a cool cat. See, I mean.
And I said, "I just got this. It's brand new. I'm not going to sell it." He goes, "Well, if you ever change your mind, let me know."
Okay.
Now, here we are, decades later.
Yeah.
And Jack Russell's Great White was playing out at the Kenyon Club in Valencia, and I hooked up with my wife is very good friends with Jack from back in the 80s as well. So we got to talking to Jack after the show, and I said, "Are you still interested in that coat?" He looks up at the ceiling. He goes, "Oh yeah!" He goes, "That leather trench coat." He goes, "You still have it?" I said, "Yes, I do." And I said, "If you want it, let me know."
Oh, well.
He goes, definitely, yeah. Well, he goes, I never thought you'd still have that coat. So Jack was one of the guest artists at the Rock Against MS benefit.
Okay.
Down in downtown LA.
Wow.
Okay, so he had Tamara and my wife and I, as guests on his list, and I went to bring the coat with me.
Yeah.
And he, at that point, he goes, "I'm having some financial issues. I really don't have the money for it right now." I said, "All right, you know what? We'll talk about it another time," like that. But he got to see the coat. He tried it on.
Wow.
And he's like, "I can't believe you actually still have this coat." Because I've been wanting this coat ever since I saw it. So, cut to some weeks after that, or I don't remember exactly how long it was after that, but Jack invited us, my wife and I, down to his boat.
Okay, yeah.
I guess it was Redondo or Huntington.
Redondo Beach,
like
yeah.
I brought the coat with me. My wife and I talked about it. I said, "You know what? He's Jack Russell. He's a really great soul.
Yeah.
Why don't we just give him the coat? Don't sell it to him."
Yeah, wow.
And when we got down there to the boat, we got on the boat, and I said, "Yeah, Jack, I've been thinking about it. You know what?" I said, "You've been through a lot of shit in your life. You deserve this." And I said, "Here, the coat is yours."
Oh, wow.
He goes, "But I don't have any money." I said, "Don't worry about it.
It's yours."
He could not believe it. He was in absolutely stunned shock.
Yeah, and you know why that is? I mean, even when you see other great white guys, like I always hear like Mark Kindle, ragging all over Jack, like, oh, he was an alcoholic, he was this and that. But you know what? You got to have a career because of that guy, because of his voice, and so you really shouldn't be like that. So even these guys that he grew up with, it's a shame they treat him that way. But I want to thank you, Rik, for taking part to do the Rik Fox Story Part 6, and there are going to be future episodes. If you could hold on for a minute, Rik, I'd like to talk to you real quick before I let you go.
Well, I just wanted to let you know that Jack immediately put the leather trench coat on and wrapped his arms around me, gave me a real big hug, and you know what? It looked like he had a tear in his eye. I
could imagine so. Yeah. Wow. What a great way to wrap this episode up. I tell you, when I had the idea to do this this episode today, talk about the jams and all that, I had no idea we were going to talk about all this or hear anything about you auditioning to maybe audition for Angel. So this really turned out to be a great episode.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thanks, Rik. Just hold on for a minute if you don't mind.